With the 15th overall pick, the Toronto Maple Leafs has selected Rodion Amirov, and who the heck is that guy? I did some digging and I want to tell you what I found. Before we talk about Amirov at all, let's talk about Kyle Dubas. Because a lot of eyes rolled at this pick, and I'm not going to lie, I kind of laughed. All the talk of the offseason is the Leafs need to get bigger and tougher. Kyle Dubas gives an interview right before the first round of the draft, and he talks about the need to get bigger and tougher. And they draft this guy. There were defensemen available, and instead they get a forward, a winger no less, who is weighing in at less than 170 pounds. It's so on brand for Kyle Dubas that it's painful, and a lot of people seem to expect different. And my question is, why? Okay, so the Leafs need to get bigger and tougher and better on D. This current Leafs team, hopefully contending for a playoff spot and then doing well in the playoffs this upcoming season. You think they were going to get bigger and tougher and better on D with whoever they were going to get with the 15th overall pick right away? I don't. Kyle Dubas obviously selected Amirov because he thought he was the best player available, and I hope he's right. For the Leafs to not get a big guy with this pick, or not get a defenseman with this pick, I can forgive. After all, there's still another full day of the draft ahead. We don't know what's going to happen there. There's free agency ahead. We don't know what's going to happen there. There's all sorts of trade possibilities. We don't know what's going to happen there. But I tell you what, if we get to October 12th and they've done nothing to address their main issues, I'm going to be pretty mad. Become harder to play against. All right, well, Kyle Dubas has already mentioned that that's a goal. Supposedly, according to The Athletic, Kyle Clifford was offered a 3-year deal at over $1 million per, which is a big deal not just because of the money, but because there was a conditional pick in the trade with the LA Kings, and re-signing Kyle Clifford would have meant giving the Kings a second rounder. Right now, it's just a third. They need to improve the right side on defense. They need to get a right side on defense because they basically only have Justin Hall right now. They need to get Morgan Riley a defense partner, ideally the best defense partner he's ever had, and right now the bar is Ron Hainsey. Holy smokes, please climb over it. And all this talk about, oh, they could use Janssen in a trade, they can use Kerfoot in a trade. If they get this winger with the 15th overall pick and then hold on to those guys and don't address the issues on the back end, yeah, I'm going to be pretty mad. But to write off the Leafs' entire offseason because of the first pick they made in the draft, don't do that to yourself. As a guy who makes his living yelling and screaming for this team until there are veins in my neck and forehead, don't do that to yourself. Transitioning to the player Rodion Amirov is, there was a sinking disappointment when the Leafs made that pick that I recognized. The last time I was this disappointed in a Leafs first rounder, they used it on a guy who only played 18 games in junior the previous season. What are you thinking? I don't know what they were thinking, but it was the right pick because that player was Morgan Riley. It's true, man. I was devastated when the Leafs picked Riley in 2012, and yeah, it's gone pretty good. So, who is Rodion Amirov? Well, right now, he's a left winger for Salavat Ulayev of the KHL. He stands at about 6 feet tall, and he's listed on HockeyDB anyway as 167 pounds. Oh, there's Dubas with another small guy. Well, okay, wait a sec. Yeah, that is pretty small, but I remember the part where I said he's 6 feet tall? His birthday is October 2nd, meaning he turned 19 years old just last week. He's got some time to grow. So I saw the reaction, oh my god, another small guy, and I'm like, well, that doesn't mean he's gonna stay that way. I'll tell you what did drive me nuts, and it was a little bit of laziness. Because this guy, this 15th overall pick, that's an extremely high pick, was listed as only playing 21 games last season, 0 goals, 2 assists. The Leafs just drafted a guy who has 2 points? No! This is a problem I see on a lot of the draft sites, and I saw in some of the draft coverage. And HockeyDB, it's a website that I use almost every day. It's great. But if you see here, Rodion Amirov is only listed as playing 21 games in the KHL last season, and he's already played 10 in the KHL this season. He's actually played a lot more hockey than that. If you go to EliteProspects.com, you see that Amirov has actually played for many different teams at many different levels, including 3 different levels of hockey last season, over 40 games between the KHL, the VHL, and the MHL, not to mention he was in the World Juniors and also another tournament in Russia. I don't know what any of that means. Give me a sec. The KHL is obviously the Continental Hockey League. It is the top men's league in Russia, and it also spans through several other countries as well. Depending on who you ask, it's the second best hockey league in the world. Some people say it's the AHL. Anyway, it's up there. The difference is NHL teams use the AHL as a farm system. It's for development. The KHL? They don't have time for that. They don't care. It's extremely difficult for teenagers to make KHL rosters, like an opening day roster, and it's even more difficult to find any kind of role of prominence on the first or second line, first or second pair. If you've watched my prospect pyramid videos over the past few years, that was a huge mistake that former Leaf second rounder Emily Rasanen made. He was playing in the OHL. He's playing for the Kingston Frontenacs. He's getting tons of ice time, but he decided, you know what, I'm going to turn pro, and he goes to the KHL where he is promptly benched. Hard to develop your skills too much when you're just sitting in the press box eating popcorn. So, KHL, top men's league over there, difficult to play in as a teenager. I mean, after all, you're playing against full-grown men. Then there's the VHL, where Amirov had 3 points in 5 games. It's not a perfect comparable, but that is more along the lines of the KHL's version of the AHL. And his team in the VHL was Toros Neftekamsk. But the team that he did the most scoring with, 22 points in 17 games as a matter of fact, was Tolpar Ufa of the MHL. Again, not a perfect comparison, but that's more along the lines of juniors. So basically, Amirov was playing against his peers, and he tore them up. Only 4 players on that team scored at over a point per game. 2 of them were 20 years old. Another was a player named Alexander Pashin, who is actually still available in this NHL draft. He was born in July 2002. And the other was Rodion Amirov, who didn't score as many points, but that's because he played fewer games, because he was busy playing in the top men's league in Russia. And for what it's worth, supposedly Corey Pronman has the Leafs taking Alexander Pashin later in this draft. It would make sense. They would have scouted him if they were looking at Amirov. Plus, you've already seen Amirov all over your Twitter timeline and all over YouTube, all over the highlights, because he was the guy who did this. Remember this? He pulled the Svetch in an actual tournament. This guy did it in a game that counted. Are you kidding? That thing that Austin Matthews wants to pull off more than he wants to breathe, Amirov actually did. So, Amirov only scored 2 points in 21 games last season. No, it's just not true. Also, you can't ignore the special circumstances of this draft. It's in October. So teams had all these notes on draft prospects, but what's been interesting is over the past month and a bit, they've actually been able to add to those notes because a lot of these players, especially the ones in Europe, have already been playing. So you can look at Amirov's 2 points in 21 games in the KHL and be like, yeah, is he going to improve on that though? Most years that would be a mystery box. You wouldn't actually know. You would just have to take a chance. This year, it's a definitive yes. He's already played 10 games in the KHL with Salavat Yuliyev, putting up 3 goals and 2 assists for 5 points. So he's at half a point a game in the KHL, which is pretty good for a 19-year-old. Interesting little wrinkle from Chris Johnston. Leafs draft pick Rodion Amirov is signed with Salavat Yuliyev Ufa through the end of this season. He's eligible to come to North America as soon as the 2021-2022 season, although that's a decision not likely to be made until well down the road here. That's actually pretty big. Granted, things can change. He can re-sign with Salavat if he wants to. But so often you'll hear a story like Evgeny Kuznetsov, who is a great player in the NHL right now, but it took him forever to come overseas to join the Washington Capitals. The fact the Leafs could potentially have Amirov in the AHL or even the NHL as soon as 2 seasons from now is pretty big. And because I wanted to know as much about this guy as possible, I actually signed up for EliteProspects.com Premium. So I pay for special features on the site now, which gives you access to the entire Salavat Yuliyev coaching staff. Why the heck do I care about that, Steve? I don't know, maybe you don't, but it might be important because they're going to be responsible for developing this guy for at least the next year. Their head coach is a Finn named Tommy Lamsa, who wears turtlenecks. Wait a sec. Okay, good. He's not Thomas Buchanan. I had to make sure. But he's been in coaching for a long time. He was a head coach in the Finnish league with Jokerit back when they were still in the Finnish league and the Lahden Pelicans. And he was an assistant coach with Salavat Yuliyev for each of the last 3 seasons, so he would have been working with Amirov already last season, and he got promoted to head coach this season. Salavat also has 3 different assistant coaches, Mikhail Vasilyev, Nikolai Tsuligin, and Viktor Kozlov. You might be going, I know that name, and that's true. Tsuligin played 22 games for the Ducks. The Mighty Ducks. They were still called that back then. Viktor Kozlov with 537 career points in 897 career NHL games. Add in his KHL and Russian experience. He played a cup of coffee in the IHL. He played well over 1,000 games in his career. And if you're trying to get better at hockey and learn how to go from Russia to the NHL, Viktor Kozlov could probably teach Rodion Amirov a thing or two. A final note on Amirov, his agent, Dan Milstein. Congratulations to our client, Rodion Amirov, with the 15th overall selection in the 2020 NHL NHL draft by the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if you're like, wait a sec, Dan Milstein, I recognize that name, that's because you do. Sharp eye from Steven here. The Leafs have 3 of his clients now in Mikheyev, that's right, Ilya Mikheyev, Alexander Barabanov, and now Rodion Amirov. Maybe another? Dan, give us a deal! And funny enough, Dan Milstein himself corrects him. It's not just 1, it's 2. He has Yegor Korshkov and SDA, Semyon Durargachintsev, as well. This response made me laugh pretty hard. Who's counting? But don't forget about Nikita Zaitsev, whom the Leafs missed very much in the 2020 NHL playoffs. Alright, Dan, let's relax here. Hey, you be nice to Dan, alright? We still need a Mikheyev extension. Come on, Dan, discount. How many other markets can you get your client a soup deal in? Hello, Campbell's? My client plays for the Minnesota what? Hello? Then hang up the phone, Dan! 8 years at 800,000, what do you think? So, Rodion Amirov. Getting besides the point. Was he a good pick? I have no idea. We'll see. That's every pick, isn't it? In this week, the Leafs have 2 separate missions. Draft the best players they can and make the team better now. And something tells me it's not a winning strategy to draft some big defenseman, throw him into the lineup, and be like, alright, teenager, you're our new big tough guy. Maybe we should learn a thing or two from feeding Luke Shen to the Wolves. So we'll see what day 2 has in store, we'll see what free agency has in store, trade market. There's so much that can change over the next couple weeks. And so now we wait and see what kind of player Rodion Amirov becomes. Maybe he's a total bust, maybe he's a depth player, maybe he's a useful middle 6 guy, or maybe he's on the top line with Matthews and Marner in a couple years, helping the Leafs en route to a cup. Hey, it's the draft. You gotta use your imagination. So that is it for this one. Spasiba very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe. If you really liked it, tell your friends what you just learned about the KHL, VHL, and MHL. We're learning. We're all learning.